Wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger. Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger. Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never.
Wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never.
Eat shell!
Stop, bro! Shoot! You just shot me!
Fired a warning shot and hit you.
Assistant Director Dave Hall's attorney telling me he was just a few feet from Baldwin when the gun went off.
Until Alex said that, it was just really hard to believe. But Dave has told me since the very first day I met him that Alec did not pull that trigger.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what? What?
Say what?
Got me!
What the hell was that? Well, that was entertaining. Wow.
Oh, hey, we've got to do a quick victory lap. Part 3 of the interview on YouTube. Do you notice what Stephanopoulos opened with?
No.
Alec Baldwin was rehearsing for his next scene, which is a gunfight.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. There were echoes of our show all through that thing. You know, they took the exact Clooney stuff I had said. I mean, there were echoes through the whole show. Just, you know, to be honest with you, I thought that somebody was, you know, watching us.
Maybe.
Let's
hope. We got 175. All right.
Welcome everyone. People are.
Okay. Wow. It has been a busy weekend. Okay. I'm blown away. You and I were like, okay, we've done 6.
Yeah.
We'll probably wait a couple months or,
right.
you know, lawsuit will drop, something will happen, whatever.
Right.
Maybe we'll hear news to the FBI. Did you ever think that Alec Baldwin would go on and do a 50-minute freaking interview about this just to bring it right back into the limelight?
Dude, I was completely caught off guard. It was like watching a train wreck last night. I just couldn't take my eyes away. You know, it was riveting. You know, I don't know what he was doing on there, and I don't know what his goal was other than to muddy the waters even more, Eric.
Yeah, but I don't see how he's I cannot think that his crisis intervention team liked this idea. I just don't see, you know, where it's going. For one, everything was muddied up, right? Now he has actively said that he pointed it at her, that he pulled the hammer, and his excuse, there were some problems with the hammer, you know, falling, if you will.
Right.
There's some documentation on that. A lot of experts are saying no way in hell. And unfortunately, this is something we got to wait on the FBI. I really would like to see that gun taken apart, disassembled, make sure it was not defective. I never want to lay it out there and say that's absolutely a lie. It just is very questionable. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, it could be a slip gun, you know, where the a slip gun situation is a jerry-rigged gun where the hammer is designed to fire without the trigger. I don't know why that would be there or what, unless that gun had been tricked up to be a slip gun in some sort of shoot 'em up that her dad may have had. Or a slip gun is by design. It makes the trigger ineffective, and you have to either fan or thumb the hammer, Eric. So if that gun was tricked out as a slip gun, which in her arsenal she probably or might have had for her dad who did all those Western shows, Eric. It's just a theory. Again, you know, it's, you know, if the trigger is not the thing that he pulled, the hammer could have been tricked out as a slip gun. And it's just one theory to put out there. That's all.
Right. And if it was not tricked out in that manner, from what I understand, if it was a replica gun that is released as claimed, off the shelf, whatever, it could not do that unless it was defective.
Right. Okay. So just to get into what's going on there with the 4 clicks of the hammer, what she is doing, the cinematographer, is having him cock the hammer for all 4 positions, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the hammer. There's 4 clicks involved. And that hammer, what he's not realizing, but what she is making him do is a close-up of the hammer being cocked, which she, for some reason, wants for that scene. And it's a close-up almost of him in each position of the hammer being cocked. 1, 2, 3, 4, back, right? The 4th one being the lock position of the hammer ready to shoot. For some reason, he releases the hammer at the end, and that, according to him, launches the projectile and fires the gun. That's his defense now. And that's hard to put that back into the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Because now he's narrowed it down to where there's no any other option.
Yeah, no, there's no wiggle room. And apparently what I believe is they have now a new ally, either through finances or legal means, in David Halls, who has now come over to their side and said, I am the witness who saw him not pull the trigger. David Halls has now either been bought off or has seen the light of day as to his legal dilemma and has come over to the Baldwin team as an ally and witness. I mean, that's where we are.
Yeah, which is interesting. And I've always thought his lawyer is very interesting too. Oh,
that was the dude. I'd love to have the behavior guys look at that performance. That was insane.
I mean, it was like, oh, look,
some crazy lady on the street walking by in a see-through sweater. I mean, what is that all about? What is she doing out there?
Oh my God. Okay, so there's some other points that are interesting too. Like, okay, Hannah Reid, we've talked about how she's thrown under the bus, but not under the bus, but under the bus, but not under the bus. And even in that interview, I felt like he was 1 minute really kind of exonerating her, and then the next minute kind of not letting her off the hook. It was an interesting little dance with her. But one thing I thought was significant is he said that she spent 90 minutes with him.
Right.
That is not somebody ignoring safety.
Right. Okay. But again, as I discussed last night with some associates, what were they doing for the 90 minutes? They went off set to shoot live rounds.
That was my question too. He said, shoot the gun. And I thought, was that with rounds?
Of course. Or was what is he going to go off set to shoot blanks? That's insane.
I don't know. That's a very interesting. Yes.
And it can't be during the shooting day because she's needed. This was done. This was the rumor about them shooting at night. This was done. This is where it came from. She can't leave the set to do something with him for an hour and a half. She's the property master, ostensibly. She's shooting. I mean, shooting film, in other words, during the day. So this either has to be at night after the day is done, which was what the original rumor was, Eric, as you recall. And maybe that's what people were commenting on. This safety thing that she did with him was ostensibly not a safety thing at all. The safety stuff is done on set before a gun is brought on set. That's a standard operating procedure. What he did with her for an hour and a half shooting live rounds after he says there can't be any live rounds on a set, that's insane. The idea that he's shooting blanks at a range off the set is insane. That doesn't make any sense to me either. I mean, what it sounds like is she took him off of the set by an inch or 10 feet, in back of the set, and probably had a little firing range back there. No harm, no foul.
And if I recall, in at least one, there's some accusations flying around too. Her father is now stepping up.
Right.
And he is, he's looking out for his daughter, as can be expecting. He's making the claim that some live rounds that were his went into somebody else's possession. And
right, but back up what he's saying. Back up what he's saying. The father is saying he was doing the same thing on another movie set with live rounds with actors. The father was doing that, taking a guy off of the set and having them fire the gun with live rounds, like father, like daughter. He then gives
that too, that happens on sets. I mean,
right. So. He then gives the remainder of it to this other guy, the remainder of the live rounds. He says, "Do you want these?" The guy says, "Sure." He's a gun dealer, whatever. I'll take them. That's fine. But this whole preposterous notion that there's no live rounds on the set when they're just outside of the set with a mocked up shooting range is what's going on. You know, so okay, so where is that shooting range? It's over there. You know, it's like on the other side of the building. Okay, big deal.
Right.
Big deal.
And you've been in like Prescott recently, or that area, and
Yeah,
you know how it is in the desert. It's like there's plenty of range area.
right. The fact that they've got some bottles set up and they're using them to help the actors learn how to shoot seems to be a normal situation, not, you know, some aberration where they made it seem like they were going out shooting rabbits at night. He's now admitting that he went with her somewhere for an hour and a half to either, at this point, shoot blanks for reasons I couldn't understand, or shoot live ammo, which makes more sense.
True. Now let's Mark and I have been like completely busy and apart, so we haven't been able to tell each other what we're preparing. So we're learning along with the rest of you. I threw something together, a little piece where he's talking about the armorer, and I want to share that here and get your thoughts.
That's exactly what happened. That day, I did exactly what I've done every day on that movie.
Which is what?
Which is that there's an armorer there, and that word is new to me. In the years I've been in this,
What did you call it?
It was a prop guy or woman.
Yeah.
And the prop person would come, and sometimes they would insist on demonstrating for you and the camera crew. They take the gun. If it was a contemporary gun, they show you the chamber, they show you the clip. They say, the gun is cold. And you look at it and go, thank you.
Hi, Eric. So we've got your video. I had a quick look at Alec Baldwin during the interview, and there's a few things that stood out to me. When you are kind of talking and self-editing as you go, you can say things that you regret. I've seen it happen before. I'm sure you've seen movies and cartoons, and other people have seen it where somebody says something that they instantly regret. They kind of make that motion. Obviously, as an adult on TV, you can't just go around doing that. It would be too obvious. So what happens is people tend to block by doing that. And it gives that kind of indication that they've started the motion of blocking, but stopped themselves from completing that action. So yeah, it does look like he's kind of pulling the words back into his mouth, like he regrets saying them. That's one of the things I noticed. He looks down and right as he says the words, usually linked to the emotional part of the side of the brain, which I don't know whether it's congruent. I haven't baselined him. I didn't watch the rest of the video. I only watched the little bit you asked me to. Also, he does this very jerky movement forward as he says it, like he's trying to reinforce and push what he's saying forward. Like, you believe me, right? So that action is there. That, to me, probably isn't congruent with the everyday action of what Alec Baldwin would do. Like I say, I didn't baseline him, so I didn't look at the rest of the video, so I can't say for definite. But from the little bit that I did see, there's definitely some kind of indication there that there's possible deception. I would definitely want to explore more and find out, why he was making those movements, why he was making those actions, and probably dig deeper and see where it leads. Hope this helps.
Wow, that helped. That was
okay.
helpful.
And what happened was when I saw it, okay, if you watch the entire interview, it stood out to me because when he said that armor, that's a word I haven't heard before. Did you notice the hand? He didn't do that at any other point that I saw. And that there's a thing called blocking. And
right, but what's his motivation for that armor?
I don't know. But what I'm saying is, what are you blocking? Now, it could be that he was out plinking the night before, so his knowledge is deeper. It could be, I don't know, but there's something going on there. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that, it just triggered me in my mind. And I said, hey, Gavin, does that look like he's blocking?
Oh,
and so that's why it's like, let me get that part evaluated, because I think it's very, very interesting.
Well, I'd like to see the whole thing evaluated. It's if we.
Oh,
could.
Sure. I just didn't have the time.
No, I agree. And also that lady attorney who's Hall's attorney, she sounds, she went to Liars High School. I mean, that was a terrible performance by her. The question is, I asked myself.
Somebody in the chat saying that Adam said that he was lying about not knowing the word armor.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, but again, what's the point? I don't understand what the point is.
That's the thing. That's the weird thing.
He's got so much bigger fish to fry. I mean, he goes after Clooney a little bit because the Clooney part was fascinating.
There was a later bit too, and this is what's troubling me too. I don't know if you noticed, he started to like break down, and then all of a sudden he was saying, "What? You don't know what happened?" And I'm not going to blame him on that because there were some hard cuts. Like
Oh yeah,
I was
yeah.
looking at this and going with the flow and seeing where he was talking about. He's like, "Oh, I had the safety demonstration with Hannah Reid, the armorer. We spent an hour and a half shooting. Was that with real ammo at any point? Her giving me all her safety instructions. Jump cut. Did you think she was up to the job?" Jump cut again. I assume she was,
Yeah.
because, and I felt like,
Yeah.
are we, I don't know that we had a continuous, like you and I right now, we're recording live.
Right.
Everybody can look at what we're doing and see that there's no jump cuts. It's completely flowing. There were jump cuts all over the place and some very odd places. And I'm like, did we have a pickup shot there? Did we maybe
He may have
look back
asked for that to
around?
be removed afterwards, and they
Could be.
cooperated with him,
I mean, and that's one of those, other questions, because I mean, I hate to, go into episode 3 at all, but her husband works for a law firm who's associated with whom?
Well, that's where I was just going to go, Eric, because we have to look at this and maybe put some big dots back into this equation, because why did he pick George Stephanopoulos to do this interview?
Mark, I'm not really sure. I collected some pictures, and I don't know if they paint a narrative that, well, there's Bill and Alec.
Okay. All right. So far I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this all means anything at all. I mean, I wouldn't make any kind of implication that they know each other or
Okay. All
anything like that. And that George Stephanopoulos, goes all the way back to being part of the Clinton White House or anything, but he sort of is.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at what her husband is doing, Matthew Hutchins. I mean, he was, first he was at the firm Kirkland and Ellis, and their main client was Jeffrey Epstein. Have we heard that name in the news recently, Eric?
Yeah. Wow. What?
Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein
going on.
Okay, no, but not even the trial. Forget about the trial. What was revealed out of that trial, the Maxwell trial, was that Bill Clinton flew on the Lolita Express 26 times. Okay, we now know that connection with Jeffrey Epstein. The recent revelation yesterday was that Jeffrey Epstein, in the White House logs, visited Bill Clinton in the Oval Office 17 times. Now, that is an incredible amount of times for a man logging into the White House to visit Bill Clinton. Forget about that. They're at these things, shaking hands or these events. He went in there, he flew on Lolita Express 26 times, Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. And then Epstein becomes a client of Matthew Hutchins at this law firm. Okay, that's a little weird. So he leaves the law firm and he goes to Latham and Watkins, where he is now. So who's his new client? New client is Michael Sussman. Who is Michael Sussman? He's indicted by Durham in the Russian hoax, and he works directly with Hillary Clinton. He's a fixer. He's the guy who's now under indictment, facing 4 to 6 years in prison in the Durham investigation. Sussman was the guy who brought in CrowdStrike to fix the servers that were in the DNC servers that were hacked by someone and revealed how they had screwed Bernie Sanders in those servers. That leads eventually to the Russia hoax, of which Michael Sussman lied to the FBI, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now you've got Matthew Hutchins is now connected to the Clintons. Hutchins is, because of this stuff. Okay. Now you say to yourself, George Stephanopoulos, what is his connection? Well, like you said, he was the chief of staff. I mean,
yeah, he's a Clinton operative. I mean, it goes way back. I mean, it's not even a open secret. It's just there.
Let's throw some more dots. Let's throw some more dots. Those are obvious dots. Let's put some more dots. Who's the wife of George Stephanopoulos?
I don't know, actually.
That's right, you don't. Because her name is Allie Wentworth, and she's a comedian, actress, wife of George Stephanopoulos. And if you look at a film that I gave you to put up called It's Complicated, remember I was telling you about this?
Yeah.
He starts sobbing. Alec Baldwin starts sobbing in the interview when he gets up to this film with Meryl Streep. He starts sobbing. He says to work with these people like Meryl Streep, and before that, The Edge with Anthony Hopkins. But he cries again from this, right? One of the stars of this film, playing Diane, is the wife of George Stephanopoulos.
Oh my God!
Shut up! You will shut up and learn, Hunley.
This is what I hear on the phone, folks. By the way, every time I talk to Mark, it's like, "You will shut up." Oh, okay.
Allie Wentworth has a mother and a father. She's not only a comedy actress who worked with Alec Baldwin in this film, and she's the wife of George Stephanopoulos. Her mother is Mabel Brandon Cabot Wentworth. And you say, well, who is that, Mark? Who could that possibly be? This Brandon woman, this Let's Go Brandon woman, was the personal secretary for a number of years, private and personal secretary to the First Lady of the United States, Nancy Reagan. And you say, well, what about the husband? What did he do? Eric Wentworth. Eric Wentworth was a very famous reporter for a publication called the Washington Post. So this is the dots we're putting out there. I'm not connecting any of these dots. I'm just putting out more dots like we did in episode 3, Eric.
Yep. Episode 3.
So I don't know where any of this goes, because this is real late night research by me last night, in preparation for the show, to dig down and find out who these people are and possibly why he chose George Stephanopoulos. It's obviously everybody knows Stephanopoulos is a Clinton guy. I mean, it may be more to it than that, is what I'm saying.
There's also the high level, and I do think that the trial going on now could be relevant. I mean, we don't want a lot of coverage necessarily of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Well, this sure pulled a lot of attention away from
absolutely,
that right
absolutely.
now.
Keep in mind the quote that Baldwin said last night. I've been told by people inside the state. I mean, nobody ever says that it's highly unlikely I would be charged with anything criminally. By people inside the state. You know what that means? I mean, that's a weird phrase. That means not in the DA's office.
Of New Mexico or the state?
I don't know. The deep state, the state of New Mexico, the Clinton state. There used to be a guy down there who was a governor, who was a Clinton ally in the old days in New Mexico, guy who flew to North Korea to get people released. They've had a bunch of Clintonistas in New Mexico for a number of years. But the point is, he didn't say DA's office.
Oh, speaking of New Mexico, yeah, Bill Richardson, didn't he?
That's what I'm talking about.
In the logs with the Epstein?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Bill Richardson, of course.
Sorry. Okay.
Right. Bill Richardson's, that's his state. He still runs it. So dig. So he doesn't say the DA's office. He also says in the last time we saw him on the highway in Vermont, I can't talk to you paparazzi because there's an ongoing criminal investigation. The first thing George Stephanopoulos says to him in that interview, why now? And he starts saying the criminal investigation may take till March. I don't know. They have a report. They haven't even given it to the DA, he says. I don't have that amount of time. There's people making accusations. Completely throws out what he says, weeks before in Vermont. Now he can comment, even though there's an ongoing criminal investigation, Eric. That apparently gets thrown out the window because that may take a long time. He says, I understand there's a report. However, the report has not been turned over to the DA yet. How does he know that? From his sources in the state? I mean, why is this guy privy to all of this information, and why isn't anybody saying there has to be an investigation in the Santa Fe DA's office if they're leaking information of this high quality to the person of interest and the actual physical murderer of Hutchins? I mean, nobody's disputing that. I mean, how is he getting leaked this information, from the district attorney's office or from the sheriff's office for that matter? So that's a subject that I'm really curious about. And okay, the other loopholes in his story, which are insane, is the fact that he says she may have fainted. Remember that whole jag that he was going on?
It took him 45 minutes before he. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that insanity that he goes on, his Sue's screaming, he's been shot. There's blood everywhere. He says she fainted. He doesn't know what happens. He stood over her body for 60 seconds, he said. And then the medics arrived and kicked him out of the church. Medics didn't arrive for half an hour. That's insane. I mean, whether they were all told to leave the church is another reason. But the fact that he thought she fainted.
Unless they were the on-set medics. I think they had medics on set, and then the ambulance came in the half hour.
Well, that I don't know. That I don't. That was the way it sounded. But the fact that he looked at her for 60 seconds, thought she fainted, and sat outside while Mamie. Don't forget, the script supervisor is also outside calling 911, saying someone's been shot with a live round. Okay, the entire cast and crew knows that she's been shot, except for this one man who shot her. The only guy who doesn't know that she's been shot is the guy who shot her, according to Baldwin. Now, I'm not, this is what he said.
By the way, you brought up Mamie, and that leads into another thing that I wanted to cover with you, because this is like, remember how you were talking about the no business for Mamie? It wasn't Mamie. It was the wardrobe. Wardrobe supervisor and the Instagram thing.
Yeah.
Well, remember when Alec Baldwin said, I didn't know of any problems until this guy complained or talked to him the night before. And then he made a specific point of saying, when he talked to me, he said, my people all need better hotel rooms. And that chimed in my head as going, wait a minute, better hotel rooms. Where did I hear that? Oh, gee, did that happen to match up exactly with a nice long Instagram post that, shall we say, just went along or matched that up almost as if it was planted by Alec Baldwin's team? And there's our cameraman, and he's definitely involved. I mean, I shouldn't leave that day.
I mean, Baldwin denies that he mentioned safety in that conversation. I mean, either that guy's going to say Baldwin's wrong, or I did mention safety to Alec Baldwin. I mean, either he did or he didn't. I mean, he says he's going to get him an Airbnb the next day, but he doesn't show up. Baldwin's not privy to anything that's happening. He's in a bubble. Apparently, the wardrobe lady knows more than Alec Baldwin, and she's at the end of the set, with her truck. The only person that doesn't know anything is Alec Baldwin. He's completely in a bubble, doesn't know a woman's been shot. He doesn't know that there's safety issues on the set, and he seems oblivious to everything. I don't know, what Looper told him, but they're going to have to question Looper. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I brought him up, is you and I never really talked about Looper at all. And I was like, that reminded me of him when Alec brought him up. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then the Instagram posts, it was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, let me tie back to an earlier dot that we just didn't cover. And I'm just.
Right. He also gets into the lawsuits, which you want to talk about later. But the lawsuits, he says he's angry that these two people have filed lawsuits against him and the production ahead of Matthew. That's his whole beef, that they're filing because the money may run out. And of course, once the money runs out, he says you can go towards individuals, which is him with deep pockets. But he would have preferred, I believe, that Matthew be the only lawsuit and get paid out by the insurance company and make this go away.
Because and Matthew's kind of an ally by his own words.
That's
and by apparently quotes too. I mean, I think Matthew has put that out other places, but I'm like, well, yeah, I guess you want to make sure that your ally is the one who gets paid.
Right. Well, that money's going to be tapped out. If these other two suits get paid out, that money's going to be tapped out. And then it's like musical chairs. You're going to have to go after Baldwin personally. And look, if there's a judgment against Baldwin for $10 million, he's going to take a huge hit. I mean, it could be $20 million, could be $10 million, could be $5 million. I don't know, but he is freaking out. And there's a reason he went into this whole song and dance about, I don't want to leave my house. I'd rather stay with my children and not go to work. I don't even work in films that much anymore. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he says, remember, working in January on a film. And I went, holy shit. He's working in January because he's worried about losing money, and he's going to start banking money left and right because he's afraid that this lawsuit's going to take him down financially.
It's a good question. Is Baldwin still an NYC resident? If they sue him, do they have to file in New York? No, I don't think.
No. It's all filed here in LA. Everything's in LA.
Yeah, well, it's a film. Where they're filmed.
It's where the residents are who are filing. The residents are here. So the filing is here. It doesn't matter where it happened or where the other guy lives. These are all in Stanley Moss.
Well, Mamie may be filing in New Mexico. Well, no, she is filing there, even though she lives in New Mexico, which is weird.
Well, that's because Gloria Allred is here.
Right.
Her attorney's
So-
here, so they're using that as a base of operations, for that suit. But the reality of it is, they're going to use LA law. And if Baldwin has to come and sit before a jury of ethnic type people who are women in LA for killing a woman from LA, it's not going to go well, in my humble opinion. I don't know. I guess he can, do the best he can. But, there was a guy named Bill Cosby. It didn't go well for him initially.
Well, this is why I don't get the whole thing, because I feel like Baldwin opened himself up for this. I mean, literally.
I think it's a Hail Mary. I think they're desperate. I don't
Okay.
think they would do this if they didn't have to. I think they believed that they had to, that he was getting savaged on social media and that they had to push back. And this was a way of pushing back, that they can push back. Other people don't have the opportunity to push back. In other words, he's able to get a George Stephanopoulos in primetime ABC News. Nobody can do that. You could not going to use it, but you'd be a schmuck for not using it. You know what I mean? And look, he stuck to his points, his talking points. Remember the live round? How did the live round get on the set? That's what the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department must never rest. And it reminded me of a guy looking for the killer of his wife.
Oh, you're gonna go there. Well, the Norm Macdonald joke. Oh,
how
she had
we
the
must
worst luck
never
in the world.
rest. We must never rest until the killer of my wife, Mrs. Simpson, is brought to justice.
You remember that Norm Macdonald joke
Sure,
about that,
sure.
right? Oh my
Yeah.
God. Well, what was it? He would be the last person standing in the way. What horrible luck! He's the only person not there.
Well, the point of the matter is, I think it was a Hail Mary. I think they are desperate for good publicity, whatever that means in his world. He's getting savaged on social media left and right. I mean, it's bipartisan. When you saw, what's his name, Joe Scarborough, and they had a whole montage of people denouncing him. And it was, look, he can easily, don't forget, he's a 63-year-old white male who may not be woke enough for them anymore. Just like Andrew Cuomo, just like Chris Cuomo, he could be thrown to the wolves by the ladies of The View at any given moment. His fate now resides in the women in media, in my humble opinion, who could throw him. What's that?
That could be. And
yeah. I mean, they could go either way. He's killed a woman. He's killed a woman. Nobody disputes that. He's walking on eggshells. He's walking on thin ice. He's tight-roping this thing. He kept saying, I have children. Why did he say that? He's looking for empathy, Eric.
Oh, sure.
I have these 6 children. Don't take away the only thing I can do to feed my 6 urchin children from Les Mis, who...
Well, I thought it was going to be more Dixonian or whatever.
Yeah.
Oliver Twist, they're all out there.
I mean, look, it's funny because he meets her for 5 seconds. He doesn't even know her. If one thing that came out was he meets her for dinner like 2 nights before, and I thought
he builds up this whole thing, and,
and it just falls apart.
And
he showed me these tableaus. They were tableaus of the
By
West.
the way, actually, you brought up. I want to go back to what we talked about earlier when you were talking about him breaking down about Meryl Streep. He was also breaking down about Anthony Hopkins. And I sent you something earlier from Evan Noam Sapir, who actually read both of his books, Alec Baldwin's books, and made commentary about how Baldwin wrote about openly weeping, I believe it was, when Anthony Hopkins took the role in The Edge. And I'm like, there's a little weird pattern here that with the same, it's like the same name, the same story, the same.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, The Edge is a famous case because he shows up with a beard and is almost fired from Hollywood because of the beard. He believes that he's overweight, has to show up with a beard. The studio executives, I forget which studio produced The Edge, but they went berserk because they wanted him to be a good-looking leading man, not look like Grizzly Adams. And and that almost destroyed his career. That plus the Tom Clancy, walking away from the Clancy series. But that was a walk away. This was disruptive on the set. Different thing with the Jack the Bear, who is a brilliant performer as a bear, works all the time. The bear works more than anybody. Got incredible reviews by Roger Ebert. If you read the review by Roger Ebert of The Edge, all he does is go how great Jack the Bear was in the movie, which got like 6.
He's a method
points.
actor. No.
He's a method bear. But the other bear on the set was Alec Baldwin, who looked like a bear, and Anthony Hopkins. So this whole thing about The Edge and working with Anthony Hopkins couldn't wait to get off of that movie because of all the chaos with Alec Baldwin. So I don't know. That seems like a made up story, but he seems to be crying. He says, I used to love making films. This is why I love.
He cried as intensely about making movies and Meryl Streep as he did his dear friend he just lost. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a bit more emotion in one than the other, but it just seemed to be very paralleled. And then there was that jump cut where he started to kind of cry, and I didn't have time to get it with Gavin, but a little bit later in that sequence, after he said that about the armor,
right?
What was he was talking about his 40 years, and Stephanopoulos said, how many times in this 40 years have you handled a gun? And Baldwin went immediately to the question is, how many bullets have been fired in movies? And there's something called chaff and redirect, where it's like he just boom, woo, over there, and then just like turns it into this dialogue, and then I would like to have that stop and things like that. So there's some really big problems. I don't like the jump cuts. They bug the hell out of me because it really interrupts the flow in my mind, and it's the same way as you said his talking points. I was going to say, well, maybe it's also his edit points, because everything was edited in a manner to definitely push a straightforward narrative.
Well, he said hundreds. I was just looking at the quote. Hundreds of billions of rounds were fired, and only 4 or 5 deaths. And then he catches himself going, "Oh shit, that doesn't sound good." Not that any death on a set is good,
right?
But 4 or 5 dead doesn't sound good, no matter what you're spinning. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
All right. So he doesn't answer how many times he's fired, but obviously you and I have found, and other people in the audience have found, all kinds of incidents where he's fired guns, and he has done it quite a few times. That Miami Blues thing, that little segment you had there, he fires a gun a number of times in Miami Blues.
Well, and then he brought it up when the Clooney quotes got brought up, he got touchy about it. He essentially was saying any actor of a certain level, it's always like a whole, I'm equal to Clooney. I can.
Well, he is equal to Clooney.
Okay, but I meant he was quick to jump back up into the same status of gun.
Well, as I said in earlier episodes, I said this earlier on. There's A-list stars that check the gun and A-list stars that don't check the gun, and I'm sticking with that. And that's the perfect example of how he was taught at the beginning that I am not going to be the last line of defense if the gun goes bad. In other words, if you think about Clooney. Not to defend Alec Baldwin, but to defend the A-list actors who don't check the gun. If what Clooney's world is, I'm going to take the gun and fire 6 shots into the ground. Well, let's say there's 6 bullets into the ground. Now you've got 6 bullets spraying off of concrete into people. Okay.
Yeah, which is a problem too. Yeah.
Right. So. That's what Baldwin was saying, that the actor should not be the last line of defense to protect the crew. He was saying, we're here to protect you and ourselves.
And I believe that, actually. I believe that a crew member took him aside and said, look, you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Well, that's the standard theory. That's what he described was, I've heard that. Everybody's heard that. The Clooney thing and the A-list actors shooting the gun, that is something I've never heard before.
But you have heard of somebody who was named who does open and looks at every bullet.
Right, but you're not an expert. What good does that do? Think about it. You don't know a blank from a fucking dummy, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I mean, not to defend Baldwin, but you don't know what you're looking for. Everybody's going after it. How the trigger happened, what happened. I get it. You're thinking that this is the real world.
Thank you, Gavin. He contributes to the show and cash.
Wow.
That's a win.
That's a double win.
No kidding.
Buy more ammo. It's not a Burbank ammo tonight. Anyway, the point of the matter is, this guy Clooney, as he said, was, well, good for you. That was the quote from Baldwin. Well, good for you. I mean, that was a little, and he said it wasn't helpful.
No, and I you see, that's the thing. I think Baldwin screwed him in a lot of ways, but I agree with him on that.
Yeah.
I could sort of see his point in the whole.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. You're supposed to sort of be my peer, and
Right.
why
There's
don't
no
you just
point
shut up?
Right. Right. They are kind of equal in the business. I mean, but Clooney's obviously made a lot more. I don't know. I mean, Clooney's had a lot of hits, and Baldwin really hasn't. And,
Well, they passed each other. I think.
Yeah.
I think it was Baldwin was much higher than Clooney at one point, and then Clooney it's reversed.
Well, here's my question: you sit down with this woman who's in the film business, and she's a cinematographer. The first thing I would say if I was her, that movie Hunt for Red October, Sean Connery was my father. And how do you not say that? The character that you're in the Hunt for Red October, Sean Connery playing the Soviet sub commander was my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I just find this hard to believe that the cinematographer would not bring that up, having been raised literally at the Murmansk Naval Submarine Base in the Soviet Union, as we pointed out in episode 3. Episode 3.
Everybody, you need to check out 3. I mean,
everything's got to go back to 3.
Yeah, 3 was like that was the high point of the 6 series, but we're coming back up. We're coming back up. Not everyone,
because with all this Clinton stuff, it's just too much, Eric. It's just, I can't just let it go. I don't know how the dots connect. I get that. Please don't ask me to connect these dots. I'm a dot finder, not a dot connector instantaneously. I can't just wave a magic wand and connect these dots. This is going to take a long time with multiple episodes, I think. And I believe, more lawsuits are coming, as you pointed out. So we don't know where that's going to go. But he already said that Serge put his arm around him and said, "You're not responsible."
Oh, the husband, no, Matthew.
Okay, well, let me finish.
Oh, okay.
Right. He says that he thought she fainted. Why would Serge put his arm around him and say you're not responsible for killing the cinematographer?
I don't know. It's so weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
That whole sequence is so weird. And that this interview was like a push-pull thing of like, oh, I was there, but I'm not a victim, but it's the worst thing that happened in my life, but I'm not a victim. But it was.
We have two things in common. We have 2 things in common, myself and the cinematographer. 2 things. We both thought the gun was not loaded.
Oh, by the way, you know what? You reminded me. And there was another show who shouted us out. Thank you very much. I forgot his name. But as he put it, it could be said that Alec Baldwin is literally blaming her. Because he said multiple times, when the cinematographer tells you to point it at her. Right. And he really did stress those points pretty hard.
Right. Now, I'll tell you something else. Everything she's saying to him is usually said by the director. You know what I mean? Like there's some things where and he does say this. He says, I've never been on a film where I've met with the cinematographer. Right. Like he says, when I do a Scorsese film, I don't talk to the cinematographer. He doesn't talk to the cinematographer. He's right. That should have been her talking to the director talking to him. That's the protocol. That's the protocol. Not her saying to him, move the gun, move the gun, move the gun, move the gun. I mean, he could have gotten mad and just, shot her based on that alone. In A-list world, I don't understand. And he says, I've never had conversations with a cinematographer before because it's just not done, Eric. It's just not done.
Yeah, it's a little.
Where's Sousa? Where is the director in this thing?
Right. The only times he might have that is you're not quite in the light. Can you shift or something?
She's supposed to say that to the director.
True.
She turns around and says, I can't see the gun clearly. And he says, Alec, would you mind moving the gun a little bit? I've seen that a zillion times. That's what he's alluding to. That's what he's alluding to. All he says is she's a very nice woman and he doesn't know her. He doesn't know her. But the idea that she's incrementally telling an A-list actor to, dude, okay, the reason I mention this is he has had problems publicly in his books talking about weak directors. It is the most incredible, insulting thing in his entire career. He said this repeatedly, that he can't stand weak directors. He longs for a guy to tell him what to do, a tough guy, a Ridley Scott, an Oliver Stone. Excuse me?
Kubrick.
Right. And he mentions various directors, John Frankenheimer, who have worked with him. So here's this little guy, Sousa, sitting up there who's not addressing him, who has a Russian woman with a heavy accent telling him how to put the gun here and there and here and there. It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. And it feeds into his anger. It feeds into his wheelhouse of what he claims he hates about modern day Hollywood. He has said this so often. The idea that she would be telling him what to do on that set, he's an anger machine as it is, Eric. You know what I mean?
True. So and this is in the chat too, and I think bring it out, but it is very curious that he said, "I don't feel guilty."
Oh, Sadie says that. Yeah, we got to address that, Sadie. She's right.
Because that is unusual, even if it's not somebody's fault. I mean, even Kyle Rittenhouse
felt guilty.
Yes, he was completely exonerated, but he felt. I mean, this is a horrible
Is it
thing.
possible that Alec Baldwin is a sociopath with narcissistic personality disorder?
I would go as far as a narcissist, but he could. I don't know if I would go all the way there. I could definitely see
the narcissistic personality. I got to ask Dr. Drew about that. He's an expert on
his actions, and anything that if he feels slighted, his pattern of behavior, if he feels insulted or he's not treated well enough, paparazzi, his daughter, there's a lot of odd incidents.
Right.
But going all the way to psychosociopath,
I don't know. I don't know. They're kind of linked together. They're kind of
There's the thing that
there's plenty of actors who are narcissists, but having full-blown narcissistic personality disorder is a full syndrome, a full clinical diagnosis. And if he has no guilt, having shot a woman to death, accident or no accident, Sadie is right. I mean, that is bizarre. That is really unusual. I mean, most people, especially in the arts, have their feelings on their sleeves. You know what I mean? This is the arts. This is, theater.
Well, he does, but the weird thing is that, and I could be wrong, but it seems to line up almost that all the heavily emotional parts with him were almost when it was how he was being affected. He was in a film with Meryl Streep. He is caught up in this mess that happened to her.
Right. Well, he says I'm not a victim, then goes on about how he's a victim. Right.
Shocking. Yes.
Yeah.
And as far as the psychopath, narcissist, there is one of those that all psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths.
Right. But I'm not talking about psychopath. I'm talking about sociopath. Let me be specific here. There's a big difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. Sociopaths can function quite well in American society and high culture.
So psychopath.
Well, they tend to kill more than just a cinematographer. They're he may kill again if he's a psychopath. I mean, he's doing a film in January. I wouldn't want to be on that.
He did say I'm not going to be in any films with guns, so we can hold him that.
Look, all I know now is watch how many times he starts trying to bank money, because that's going to really show his guilt. If I lose this case and I get a judgment against me, they'll seize all of my properties. And that's a support group. Yeah. Bipolar punt. They should work together. I once wrote a piece for National Lampoon called Dictators Club Med, where all the dethroned dictators went to the Caribbean to live together in a Club Med. And maybe these defrocked, white, woke celebrities might have to go to a Club Med for themselves in future years.
True. And by the way, I agree with this.
He shouldn't be allowed to drive an SUV. I think Dirk is right at this point, because he may kill others. He could get angry at any time. I mean,
no, wait, Mark. No, it's because the SUV may kill others.
Right.
Like his gun may kill.
Right.
It's not him.
Getting back to the slip gun, which I am going to stick to this theory of the slip gun. I don't know why, but the fanning, when you fan a gun, you still pull the trigger when you're fanning.
Right, but we read the scene. And according to the scene, he very quietly did that click, click, click.
Right.
So pull it out and click, but it was quietly because he was sneaking. They thought he was injured or whatever, and click. So if he heard 4 clicks, then it can't be a slip gun because it wouldn't. The mechanism is catchy.
She also wants a close up of the individual clicks.
Right.
She's looking for an ECU. extreme close-up of the
Right.
4 clicks. Now, again, just to reiterate, this would be done with almost in post-production with a close-up of a hand. You don't need him. This is never done. It's a waste of time of an A-lister. It's
true.
Any hand close-ups like that done in with extra people doing that. I don't know why that had to be in the scene, for her.
Right.
And again, she seems to be directing the movie. Where is Sousa? I mean, what is his take on? I mean, the guy.
Where is he now?
That's what I'm saying.
He's still
He's
gone.
the captain of this ship, and it feeds into Alec Baldwin's perennial complaint that these films are not run by strong directors, and every actor wants. It's not just him. Every actor wants a strong hand. They don't want the actor to run the show, And he's saying I'm a creative producer in the interview. He's right. He's got creative input into the production, but so does himself as an A-list actor. The things that he can do are not because he's a producer, which he kind of implies. It's because he's an A-list actor.
Well, any A-list actor can influence what's going on around them just because they're.
He says, when Sousa says I hired Hutchins, he doesn't know who she is. He's saying, "Are you happy with her?" And he says, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." I mean, he doesn't know who he's.
You see, that's part of it right there. Distancing, but trying to be close. Distancing, trying to be close. He keeps doing that through the interview, like, "Oh, she was so wonderful into the bonding and the family," as if they go way back. But then he's like, "Yeah, he said that he hired her," and I said, "Is she all right?" "Oh, okay, good." It's like he can't quite settle in. Now,
I'm just talking about the structure of film hiring. Just the structure of traditionally how it's done. He's correct about that. The interview, you're correct also that he's herky-jerky about this stuff because he's trying to serve two masters, I think, in the interview. He's trying to say how an A-list actor deals with these things in general, but then he's also got a message from his lawyers, and he's trying to weave the two in. The thing about the live round, his remorse, blah, blah, blah. And he's kind of butting up against his two narratives is what I think you're referring to.
Yes.
But in reality, he has approval anyway of who's hired. He doesn't do the hiring. If they hire somebody who's an AD and he said, "I worked with this guy 5 pictures ago, he's a nut," and the guy goes, "All right, great, I'm not going to hire him." But basically he's going to say, "I don't give a shit who's hired or who's not hired." They want the leading actress, and from what I understand, she walked off the set originally. What's her name from The Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's wife. She was supposed to be attached to this picture, and she walked off. But that was, way before it became a production.
Pre-production or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Because I mean, who's the female lead in this movie?
I have no idea.
That's right. There is nobody.
And nobody's talking. All right. So right now we've got a lot hanging out there. We really don't know anything else, but
there is one.
I guess there's one more thing.
What was that?
I guess we do have one more thing.
We have one more thing. Okay, right.
And before we close out, that was the legendary Steve Jobs, and I can't think of one more thing without Steve Jobs. So this, how we keep getting these bottles. Barnes gets his bottles in the desert somehow floating over. See, I took a stroll to my backyard. There's a creek that goes all the way to the ocean, and it's something floated up. And it's a very interesting thing. I've got this letter. It's a 5-page letter that is being written and threatening the LA Times.
What the hell?
Do you remember, before I go into it, do you remember we were talking about Seth Kenney?
Yes. I remember.
And he's kind of a mysterious character. And then we were like, what the hell is an armorer mentor?
Right.
Another
one I said doesn't exist. Right.
Yeah. It's like, what is an armor mentor? This doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever.
Never heard that either. Yeah, we talked about that, right?
Yeah, we absolutely did.
Okay.
And by weird coincidence, here we go.
Wait a
Apparently,
minute.
the LA Times is who broke the story, claiming that he was the armorer mentor.
What?
And that he was. Remember, we were also looking at the budget and saying that extra crew member.
Right.
Okay, so this letter from Mr. Kenney's lawyers is saying he was not on the crew.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the production's armorer mentor.
Right.
And he was not hired to supervise Miss Gutierrez Reid.
That's right. I think it just says he's on the contact list, right, Eric?
Yes.
He's just on the contact sheet. Like, so is the
Exactly,
ambulance.
like anybody. Yes. And
well, the ambulance or doctors would be on the contact sheet too.
Right. And that his, it looks like his company leased the weapons to Rust, not him.
Right.
And he is demanding a retraction.
There's no monetary damages, but apparently this deadline has passed, right? Is that 5 p.m. Wednesday, Eric?
Apparently.
So do we know if they responded or
I'm not really sure because I just found the bottle today. It literally just floated in today. It was like,
I got a feeling that they're not going to do a retraction. I got a strange feeling that they don't like to do retractions.
Maybe not.
Right.
And we know from Barnes and them that defamation can be really tough, especially with anti-SLAPP laws.
Right.
But again, I don't know. And I want to clarify because we were asking the question, what is an armorer mentor? What is this? This is coming from his attorneys that is making the claim that that's BS. And that's not true. So I don't feel like it's fair without our knowing for sure to use the term one way or another. And, we've made it a point of if we're wrong, we say we're wrong. If we don't know, we don't know. And we're only finding dots and putting information out.
Yeah, like I said, I've never heard the term before, but then again, I never heard armorer before, let alone armorer mentor. And I think a lot of this is coming to fruition now. I don't know what his role was. He says his role was just as a prop house, essentially, right?
Apparently, yeah.
That's the impression. Yeah.
And
does he even know her? He doesn't address that in the letter, though.
No, it's just strictly.
So you're saying that they still could be lovers. You're sticking.
I wouldn't know that. I have no idea.
No, you're sticking with that story.
How am I sticking with that?
Oh,
you're putting words in my mouth, quite literally.
Okay, so you're going to backtrack and say you don't know. Okay.
Well, I never did know, but it was just fun speculation. A young, attractive dominatrix.
Remember, we were connecting the dots on the map as to where they lived.
Right, that they were close to each other.
Right.
And we know that Thel Reid has worked with him, so the odds are pretty good that they all know each other.
Oh no, they definitely know each other. Yeah,
we just don't know, to what degree or anything else. So.
Well, he could be her godfather for all we know.
Sure, absolutely.
He could be her uncle. I mean, he's 52 and she's what, 24?
Yeah, he's my age.
I like those numbers.
There we go. So you're the one who was talking about.
No, I didn't say anything. All I do is find dots. I don't connect dots. There's another industry next door called the dot connection industry, and that's what they do. I don't do that. Apparently, the LA Times does. They're in the dot connecting business, and invariably quite wrong, Eric.
Yes, and apparently in that, he in the letter by his attorneys, I don't know if he wrote it or the attorneys wrote it, but
yeah.
It was stated that he told them, no, that is not the case. And there were other supporting people saying that wasn't the case with the industry or anything like that. And Gavin pointed out that you didn't block your mouth when you said you'd never heard of an armor mentor.
That's right. I never have. So, but I said the same thing about the armor, also, but the situation is now expanded where this is the third now legal action, or
we don't know. Well, and this is not to Rust. This is actually to an outside play,
right.
LA
but I'm saying in this world now, we've got sniping, as you and I said last time, we're going to see intersectional sniping now because people can sue each other. Like, Baldwin can sue someone. He's lawyered up. And don't forget, Baldwin, just so you know, has gotten some other bottle floated up into my creek. Baldwin has hired Aaron S. Dyer, a former assistant U.S. attorney out of L.A., who now works for Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw. But when he was a U.S. attorney, he prosecuted some very strange people. However, the last guy he defended, the last two people this lawyer defended, was Girls Gone Wild creator
Oh, we know another person
Joe
who
Francis,
we know
right?
another person who defended him for a minute and quit.
Right, right.
Does not
Girls
have-
Gone Wild creator Joe Francis was charged with racketeering and child pornography. Eric,
Hmm.
this was his last client. The client before that was an astronaut named Buzz Aldrin, who punched a conspiracy theorist in the mouth, who insisted the moon landing was faked.
I remember that. Everybody celebrated that.
Right. So these are the last two clients. And now, luckily or unluckily, Mr. Dyer has landed Alec Baldwin as a client. So
Okay, and that leads into this question here from the chat. And we think he will face? I don't know now. I would say no before.
no.
But I think he has given himself a little bit of exposure.
There is no way. That is a blue state with a blue DA and a blue governor, and she's a Soros.
There is that.
She's a Soros-backed district attorney.
Unless the attorney general gets involved or something like that. So I don't know. I do.
Well,
think
she's got. Look, they're going to turn. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to turn in their report, the sheriff's department, to her. She apparently, if you listen to what he's saying, the DA doesn't have the report yet, so she gets the report. At some point, she's going to drag this out as long as humanly possible and say, "I'm not going to file charges against Alec Baldwin." The idea of filing charges against him, she would be under such political pressure in that blue state from higher ups in this administration, in the state of New Mexico, in the city of Santa Fe. There's no win for her to do that.
Actually, good point. His being on with Stephanopoulos is a flex to her.
Yes, absolutely. She's sitting there terrified now of going up against the Clintons. There is no upside for her to do this. He will not be charged with anything. This is all going to be civil suits. In fact, I believe that's why they're dragging their heels on the DNA and everything else. They're going to want these civil suits to go forward, and they're going to drag it out as long as humanly possible.
All right. Well, we're not going to drag this out as long as humanly possible. So until next time, check out our locals, unstructured.locals.com. You see it down below. This letter may float from the bottle to our locals.
Right.
So anyone can go there who's joining and read it. You don't have to pay to read it. You
Get
can
in
just
there.
You can just join, follow, and it'll be available for everyone.
Do we have other lawsuits in there, Eric? Do we put the other ones in there?
The other lawsuits are in there. One is behind the paywall. The other one is open. And the way I worked it is if it's a free open source, I put it out there fine. But other ones are one was a little trickier to get, involved paywalls to get it. So it's behind a paywall. Right. But I do appreciate the support. I hope you guys consider, if you really like what's there, you will continue to,
Can they become members of this? How do they become members?
They just go there, join. It's $5 a month or $50 a year.
Right on.
And we're working to get a lot of great content out. There's other ways to support. Obviously, we've got PayPal's down below if you want to support either one of us directly. Like you want to get Mark some books or something.
I'm in Books Anonymous, which is a 12-step program. I'm addicted to books, and I'm trying to work this out. So if you can still send me some PayPal money, I could still buy the books and be moderate in my usage of the Kennedy assassination books, which I guarantee you are expensive. So you may want to PayPal me if you want to see more Tippett or Jack Ruby, I guess, will maybe the next one, or Ruth Payne, Eric, or
you're up on that. It'll be one of those.
Yeah.
We may have a couple short shows coming out about Reverend Moon and
the Moonies. We got to do the Moonies.
Yeah, we're doing the Moonies. And I believe we've got the Art Detective.
Right, but also the UFO. The UFOs we're doing. My experience, my encounter with the UFOs.
Okay. Well, and this is another way you can support. We will always take super chats. Thank you very much.
I like this guy already. By the way, I'm at Lord Buckley for Twitter if anybody wants to find me. Okay, I don't even know how to explain this, but somebody sent me one of my tweets, ended up in Forbes magazine in an article today where it was about brown sugar with Mick Jagger putting it to bed for the Rolling Stones. And I made some off-the-cuff comment as a joke, and it ends up it's in the middle of an article in Forbes magazine, this tweet that I sent out 2 weeks ago. So I am at Lord Buckley, L-Y, not L-E-Y, because we're going to do Lord Buckley as a comedian as an episode, and that's L-E-Y, the famous avant-garde comedian Lord Buckley, which will be an episode later in maybe into next year or December, I guess. I don't know. We're getting it up to
Yeah,
the
because
new
we
year.
got Salk and Saban, and there may be a guest doctor showing up for that.
Oh yeah, we got to do Salk versus Saban, the race for the cure for polio. That's going to be a good one. That's going to be a good one. And then we've got also Fat Tuesday, don't we? We got the when I put on the world's largest toga party in New Orleans. Got the key to the city somehow in a complete blackout, but I do have the key. So apparently I was there at that time doing the world's largest toga party at Tulane University with Otis Day and the Knights, which is going to be a very funny episode. I got to tell you.
Imagine that. Otis Day and the Knights from a guy who was an editor at the National Lampoon.
And the Guinness Book of World Records was there to prove it.
Okay, so folks, we understand if you can't afford to, pay to support anything else, just subscribe and tell a friend. Seriously.
And PayPal me all day long.
In between PayPals, make sure everybody is subscribed. Grab their phone, get on their computer.
Listen, if
and
you're
hit
not
the subscribe
subscribed to
button.
this, I mean, what does it take? Come on, just get off and just subscribe. It's not even any money, to be a retard not to do it at this point.
And on that note,
we got so much material coming. It's absurd.
On that note, good night all.
All right.